Happy Independence celebration once again. So it's known to all of us that we gained our independence in the year 1965, on the 18th February. And still now we are still in the mood of independence celebration. And that is why we are here this morning. I know you had a lot of things that you could engage yourself in, but you decided to be here. As a result, we want to thank you for your presence. So as usual, before we move forward, we want to do our individual prayers and to commit this period in the hands of God, and also to commit this commemoration that we're doing, especially now that we are celebrating or observing Ramadan and Lent again. So we want to definitely bring our commit our day. Let us pray now. So what we want to equally take our national anthem, with our national prayers. I want us, all of us, to be happy as we take our national anthem. The national anthem is a national prayer, is a national supplication, and especially for a period like this, we cannot start any event without taking a national anthem. Now moving forward, so many of you who are coming here, maybe there are those that are already aware of the institution that is organizing this event or this program in collaboration with the University of Gambia Students Union. Here is the Nyangsani Institute for Social Research and Justice, which is popularly referred to as NSI. So when we say NSI, it is Nyangsani Institute. Mainly the Nyangsani Institute for Social Research and Justice was named after two distinguished Gambian scholars who are laid now in the pardon of Professor Suleiman Yang, and also Professor Lamin Sa. So the Nyangsani Institute is an institute that is right now located, or its office is located at Tontable. That is where we are. Just when you are heading, after the flyover, we're heading to Sukuta on your right side. And the Nyangsani Institute is an institute that is mainly focused on the aspect of research and also in the aspect of promoting social justice in our country. With its executive director, who is Professor Abdullah Sen, who is here with us, who is equally also a distinguished scholar of this country, who has lectured in different areas, especially in political science, in the Gambia and also in the US. We equally have some of the executive members or staffs of the Nyangsani Institute for Social Research and Justice here with us. We have our uncle who is just joining us. We want to say you're welcome. Uncle Serifai, you're welcome here. He's also one of the staff at the Nyangsani Institute for Social Research and Justice. We equally have Mr. Ali Hussein here, who is also another staff, and a lawyer by profession. We also have Mr. Mohamed Ali Ujalo here, who is serving also as our cameraman for the day. We equally have a very active sister, Fatma Bayo, who have been very, very supportive since coming to the institute. And also with myself, who is a runaway, sometimes a president, sometimes I'm consuming a lot of work at the University of the Gambia. So this is what the Nyangsani Institute is all about. But also we look forward to engaging with a lot of other organizations that are also focused in the areas of research and also promoting social justice in our republic. So that is just a brief introduction of what the institution is all about. Now we want to move on to our first session of engagement, of discussion, where we will have two individuals as keynote speakers who are going to give a keynote statement on areas that are the significance of our 18th February, the significance of the 18th February to the Gambians. That is the year 1965, 18th February that we gained independence. What is the significance to us, Gambians? Maybe you do not know why it is important to celebrate a day like this, but maybe from the engagement we are going to have today, you'll be able to have something to take home here, to know what is the significance of why we're celebrating the 1965 or on the day of 18 February that we gain our independence. And equally also we'll be looking at the pre-colonial legacies that are here in this country or that the colonial masters have left so that we can be able to unpack them. Now speakers this morning is Mr. Onkuseni Fai and Mr. Nyada Yorobal. These are the two people that are going to be speaking on this subject matter. And this morning we want to start with Mr. Onkuseni Fai to give us his presentation on what he thought about the significance of the 18th February celebration to the young citizens.
Truly, earlier, my name is Jennifer. Just coming from the United States. I'm a retiree, been a teacher for a while, so decided to come back home and see if I can join the rest of the crowd, coming from the diaspora to try to help. But if you just to give you a historical analysis of basically what I've been involved in, both here and in the United States. But the significance of this independence, probably I can talk pretty about it because when I was in high school at MIT in '65, I was part of those students that were hired, around that time to do, the clerical job of electoral rigging, voting and stuff like that. So I watched both the colonial legacy and the post-colonial legacy. In other words, we used to say, I watched the lowering of the Union Jack and the raising of the Gambia flag. I grew up in Yani, Kuntawu Wharf Town, which is just a few miles from where the president was born, Jawara. So basically, I was very lucky to see the post-colonial struggle in action. Because in Yani, even though Jawara was born in Yani, Varajali, they didn't have too much of political activity going on because it was basically at that time in the seasonal business, we had the GPMB, one in Kao and one in Kuntao. These were the action type industries. So you find that most of the activity was there. And you find that also most of the recruitment was there. But I don't have much time to be able to elucidate all of this. But I just want to give you an example of basically how the colonial legacy transformed later on, to a neo-colonial legacy. And by the way, the President Jawara, who was the first president, when he wrote his book, Kairaba, I was one of those who moderated the book review by Dr. Suleiman Yam in Atlanta. It was packed and full. And he was with me, and we had talked to him, some of the regrets that he had, when he took over power as a new president, and as a scienceman, he was able to the many things that I see basically there's so many, but I would like to touch the women aspect, of the political struggle that women did. I have seen it with my eyes, and I have traveled with, by that time they call them foot soldiers of the PPP, UP, and, all the parties. In the provinces, they used to hire us, we were high school, to go with them, and they used to get us to help in some of the translations that they do in some of the stuff. You do find that every town and village that these people went to recruit people, the majority of them were 90% of the contributions that were made towards the struggle in terms of organizing the masses was done by women. And some women in some towns and villages, because you didn't have too many towns, they were so dedicated that when the foot soldiers came to town to politicize or to campaign, they had to provide everything for them. They provided the food, they provided the shelter, and everything that was necessary. Some even sold their earrings by the time what the Jolof will call Urusingalam, so that they can buy food for the people. And I'll just give an example because when DK was coming, his main decision was, for example, Jawara Bojang's father, Sanjali Bojang, and his entourage. Sanjali had money because he used to work for the DPMB. And the rest of his guys were in the entourage. But you find that it was a big crowd that every village they went to campaign. The villagers had to take the responsibility. Because by that time, we didn't have too many people who had money, be it in PPP, UP, or any of them. No civil servant in Gambia earned more than $200, $300. Everybody except for the top echelon. Prior to 1963, 64, they were in grades, grade 10, grade 9, grade 7. Some were in grade 3 for 15 years and they brought less than $15 a month. So you find that the structure was so much that when we got independence, most of the women were not educated. You had few of them that were in the civil service, who were able to do. So you find that the structure of doing a political structure out of a colonial setting became pretty hard. Because all they had was up to 1970s, we did not have women representatives, even though they were part of the struggle. Compared to Ghana, where they were elected, and some of them were nominated by others. But this was one of the main things. So you do find that as we go on, we can see the hollowness of the position of women in our society. Because these were people who basically did everything. And you could name them to become like that partner. Yeah. And then you can go up to Carton, Coin, and you go to Kutao, Party Youth, and you go to Banjul itself. So many of them, you can't even name them. And but here are these people, most people don't know. Even universities don't know those who struggle. You can talk about EF Small, but EF Small was even helped by women. For him to be able to do so many things, because he tried to do everything by himself, and he did to a point that he got handicapped financially. So my position is just that I don't have much time because we have 8 minutes. This is one of the main things that I can see that the political parties, especially PPP, around that time before Jammeh came later, but they did not do justice to the women who struggled to bring us up to where we are.
To allow those that witnessed those days to take us through of what has been happening during those days. And this, as you conclude, you were mentioning for those of us who are still young, how we have lost touch with our independence history and the struggle. And even for those who are still going to the university, this is something that people are still finding difficult to know who were the key contributors towards the independence of this country. And therefore, it is important to be able to have a discussion of this nature. So just before we move to the next speaker, Mr. Baga, key things that Uncle Seri was talking about is the colonial legacy to a neo-colonial legacy that we are now having as a nation. And also another thing that we've really discussed, which is key, and we have women here, so that they can know the role that they've played towards the liberation of this country. In our society, we think the only place that women should be is in the kitchen. But not only in the Gambia, I believe also in the sub countries within the region, women have been very key contributors towards the liberation of those countries, and equally also as a nation. So just to tell the women that they also have a role to play towards a progressive society, and they should not allow anyone to be able to bring them down on that struggle. So once again, I want to say thank you so much. We now want to give this time also to Mr. Walde to equally share his thoughts with us, especially on what we are celebrating, which is our independence, and also what is its relevance to Gambian citizens today.
First, I want to make one observation. Yesterday was the 18th February, Independence Day. The moderator briefly mentioned that the first month, which is Ramadan, started yesterday, and by coincidence, Lent for the Christians also started yesterday. I have lived in this country for 70 years plus now, but I've never witnessed a day, particularly our Independence Day, coinciding with Ramadan, first day of Ramadan, and also the first day of Lent for the Christians. We also fast. I've never witnessed it, and I've never read it anywhere. So yesterday, in my opinion, was a very, very special day for Gambia's independence. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help the country prosper peacefully so that Gambians benefit from being Gambians and benefit from the resources that Allah has given to the country. And may also the government of this country work closely with sub-regional governments and international organizations so that the country will benefit the Gambia as well. Now, the topic that I'm trying to deal with is Gambia's future, pre-colonial legacies and colonial roots. It's practically impossible to talk about this within just 5 minutes or 7 minutes. So what I'm going to tell you is that this paper, which will be available when we schedule, and we'll discuss in detail what the paper entails. Now, it has 4 topics. The first topic, pre-colonial legacy, deals with ethnic and political foundations of the country. Of course, the Senegambia region becoming very prominent in this. The next one is trade, society, and culture. These are 3 things that colonial masters found of doing within the sub-region, and it's important that we continue with that and think of our current trade and the society we are in and the culture we are adapting or following in terms of making progress in the future. We must not forget about this. Now, in terms of culture, I'm hesitant to say that we are, to be honest, losing our culture, both in terms of language. Language is very important in culture. And to be honest, whether you are Fula, Mandinka, Wolof, Jola, or Serere, or Manjak, now it's very difficult for the current generation. I'm not talking about people who are 60 and above to speak without having foreign words into sentences. It's practically impossible now. That's what I always tell my children. You people cannot even speak Fula now without having foreign language and foreign words into the Fula language. So we are losing our culture, both in terms of the language. At the same time, even the food we eat. Now, our traditional dishes are getting lost. And you can see what we call the affluent disease is spreading. High blood pressure, A lot of order of this is because of the food we eat. You get into a shop, you buy tapalapa or senful, and you put in what pompitere, you put in all these things you put in there, and then put water, put everything there, and then you walk in the streets, eat like that, and it's not even sometimes good for health. Especially what we call the women that they put in the soups. Nakalai always, for us, Jimbo Indian, the Jimbo Indian, do like Ami. Anytime you have a Jimbo named after a man, that will kill instant. These orders are those general, I mean, they kill gradually, but anytime there is a Jimbo named after a man, it's going to kill instant. And it's what is killing us. So we are losing our traditional disease. And, as I've said, I've lived 70 years here, but in my village, when I was young, it's only people who are 80 and 90 who die. Of course, dying is Allah decides how long the person lives, but also what you do and what you contribute to your health. Right now, it's a big problem. Our language and our diets, traditional diets are getting lost, and we should do something. In fact, I have also been trying to help to ask people, even some of our traditions like death, marriages, and naming ceremonies, we should be able to document it because we are losing those type of cultures as well. Now, the second part deals with colonial roots and institutional legacies. The topic deals with European competition and the British control, how the British took over this country, and it's important that we take note of that. And as I have said, the details will be deliberated upon when we meet next. The topic also deals with colonial governance and economic patterns. Now, it looks at what the colonial masters were interested in terms of economic progress for their countries, instead of what they found the natives doing and helping the natives. So the current economic models we find in Africa are not the original native economic models, but colonial models that have been imposed on us, and we have no way to forget about them. We have to continue with them because we've lost our own economic models. Now, the third topic is part of independence and post-colonial state. Of course, nationalism. The natives started to see the hidden agendas of the colonial masters and started to revolt against some of those things, which has led us to independence. Now, also the second topic under the path to independence and post-colonial state is the contemporary state challenges. Of course, we took over from the colonial masters, forgetting because we did not, we forgot about our native models of development. So we were sort of forced to follow the colonial development models. And so it's up to now very difficult for us to prosper because we don't fully understand the colonial masters' models and we have forgotten our own models. So we need to make effort now. The only advantage we have is now that we are educated, we know these things, and we start to reverse the colonial economic models. Actually, you can see that the native models, in my opinion, are more sustainable than the colonial economic models. You can see now that the West is making a U-turn because these colonial economic development models are not sustainable. And see, efforts are now being made to make them sustainable. And for Africa, we still have patches of our past which are sustainable that we should start to build upon. So it's important that we look at that. Now, the fourth topic is linking the past to Gambia's future, cultural identity and social cohesion. As I said, we need to go back and look at what our ancestors did, what was good for this country, and to ensure that the little that we have with us in terms of the culture and economic development, we start to build upon those ones. We have institutional reform and legal pluralism. Now that we also have learned the colonial models, we should build around them, but paying particular attention to what is beneficial to the Gambia. And then, of course, economic diversification. The colonial masters monocropping pattern for this country, which was grand, is not, it has helped us, to be honest. That was our main source of income. But for now, I think even the Ministry of Agriculture has been making significant efforts to diversify so that we don't have to depend on what is called monocropping, but many crops and also many areas of agricultural practices are being thought and being practiced, both in terms of crops, cereals, tree crops, and also vegetables, and at the same time also animals. We have quite a lot of diversified type of animals. Animal husbandry is being practiced. So we realized long since that depending on granules alone is not moving the country forward. In terms of agriculture, what we actually need now, because it's our main source of income for the average Gambian and for the country, is really to process anything that is being produced agriculturally. And I am not happy that we have left even heights and schemes. Now people, I don't know whether said these heights and schemes to our regional neighbors, we cook and eat those ones, but we had height and schemes program in this country where these cattle and other schemes were processed and as leather. That has died. And a lot of other indigenous businesses have also died. Now, for me, for agriculture to move forward, in my opinion, and I have a paper on this, is to make sure that everything being produced in agriculture is processed. We have factories that process them into finished goods. That way we can fight poverty and also hunger. Because, for example, mangoes, look at the mangoes, are all flowering now. Now, once they produce mangoes, within 2-3 months, the mangoes get rotten because we don't process them into nice juices. We lose them within 6 months, we have no mangoes. By now, if we had a factory that is producing the fruit trees and vegetables, especially mangoes, you would have been enjoying the juices right now whilst they are flowering. Now, once they flower, we restock again.
Good morning, everyone, once again. Participants, Prof. Sen, and everyone present here. John Jariba have given me the questions that have been asked frequently, because celebrating the Independence Day have been a culture in the Gambia now. I can fully say it. Most of the things that we keep saying have been repeated several times. But there are always questions that are not yet answered. You know, as a nation, we have a long way to go. I always say this. Nations cannot be built on the lacks of honesty and true patriotism. And it starts right with the citizens, from the society, to the government. Why am I saying this? I always take reference of other countries outside the country. And whenever I'm doing reference, I draw it with reference to the Asian countries. Let's say the Asian tigers. How did Asia become Asia today? Countries like China, countries like Singapore, countries like Japan. How do they develop? It's the questions that you and I should find answers for. I made big research about the Asian tigers. Well before the advancement of Asia, we all know Europe was far ahead of Asia. But what happens? They were able to send some of their few individuals into the European countries. To do what? To learn technology. Because for a country to develop, you must import technology. And this is what is lacking in the Gambia. They understood very well that some of the people they are sending will not return back to the country. Just like similar incidents that happens during Jambia's era. Resources were spent on them, even though the governments knew some of them would abscond or would not come back to ACB. But the few individuals that were patriotic, honest to their country, came back. What did they came back with? The technology that they learned in the European countries. They imported back to Asia and they started using the same technology. What did countries like China do? They make sure they bring professors outside to their universities to teach their citizens, to equip them for the future. Now I want us to come back to the Gambia during Jambia's era. Because sometimes it's easy we point fingers at the government. But equally important if we can reflect back on our attitudes, particularly when it comes to building the nation. In Jambia's era, we understood there were people who were sent outside to go and learn certain technology to come back to the country and utilize it here. But what happens at the end of the day? They ran away. Which resources were spent on them? The state resources. Some of them never came back to this country. That is a betrayal. But as citizens, we are always important to point fingers. Of course, the government is responsible for everything, but we equally have a role when it comes to nation's development. Uncle made a very much good declarations here, particularly when it comes to agriculture and other preservations. Like he made reference of the mangoes blooming flowers right now. It's very unfortunate we don't have cold stores in this country where we can preserve our fruits, where we can process them to drinks and then the like. We don't have trade substitution industries in this country. We heavily depend on importations, which is not good for the country. To me, I really don't want to believe a country's lack of development is because of lack of resources. We have seen countries outside that do not have much resources, but they utilize the human skills they have. They import other natural resources outside, process it, and then utilize it within their country, and even they export it outside to other countries. This is how nations grow. Because to me, a country will never grow if it does not have the habits of honesty and truthfulness. Most of the time, we advocate things that we do not practice. And this is what is deceiving us. Because at the end of the day, actions is what matters. Like I said when I began my speech, most of the things we said here have been said by various speakers. These are words that have been repeated several times. But do we practice those words in actions? Do we live by our words? Celebrating the Independence Day is important. It reminds us of everything. My brother made mention of when we went to Senegal. Actually, I was very much happy, and because when you give a comparative analysis between the Gambia and Senegal, particularly their university, there's a heat gap, there's a heat lag. We have to be honest, we lack most of the facilities in our university here, ranging from sport, research centers, everything. We went there, the campus tour, it was just cool. It is amazing. We went to one of their military camps, we see the structures, we were taken through, we were given the privileges to go to the military camp, to have a tour, to be taken through. Honestly speaking, they are already in the future. They are in the future. So I think actually it all boils down how we prepare ourselves for the future. How the society, like parenting, culture, and maintaining our language is something very important. Because some of these countries I mentioned here, the likes of China and the like, they do not adopt certain cultures outside. They make sure they preserve their cultures. Because they know at the end of the day, those are the drivers, the cultures we have. But what distracts us as Gambians or Africans in general, because we focus too much in copying cultures outside. And at the end of the day, we lose track. And once we lose track, it's a problem. We cannot continue blaming the colonizers. They have left since 1965. They left with us. They left us here. We have our own government, own institutions. Should we still continue blaming the colonizers? Would it be very much fair? It won't. Now we have control of our own country, our states, our institutions. But look, we cannot grow if we don't have strong institutional laws. Other countries like China, where you make research, when you are caught making corruption or guilty, you are executed. These are the things we need. Our judiciary must be strong. Our educational system must advance. We must move away from the British educational system. Imagine, you start your school in Korea from nursery school. You spend roughly 2 years. You move to primary school. From grade 1 to 6, you spend 6 years. You move to upper basic, you spend 3 years. You move to senior school, you spend 3 years. Altogether, it's how many years? Roughly how many years? 12 years. 15 years. No skill. Just a paper. And we call ourselves educated individuals. Yes, we might be very much good in public speaking. When we speak, people clap for us. That is branding. But at the end of the day, the actual skills is what keeps us going, not the mere advocacy. And this is where the country should move from now. Train individuals with skills, not just building skill centers, but equip them with the necessary skills they need. Today, most of us have degrees, very much decorated certificates. We have a lot of institutions, CSOs, and then the like, they train individuals. But again, we have to be honest to ourselves. The very individuals we are training every day, graduating with certificates, are we training them to have skills? Or are we training them to graduate with certificates? These are questions we need to ask ourselves. We have a lot of individuals that are gaining sponsors from outside in the name of developing their community. But at the end of the day, are you using the funds to develop your community? Or are you using it for your own individual development? This is what is happening in the Gambia. Until all actors are honest, we will keep blaming each other. Citizens will blame government, citizens will blame private investors will blame government. It's going to be a circle that will continue. But the real change will never happen. So I really don't want to bore us much with a lot of words. I will stop here. Because myself, I'm a student, and I would love to hear from the likes of Prof. Sen and my fathers here, my uncles, Mr. Gay, and then I have my boss here, just like Ijola. I like the cultural attire anyway. Wow. Yeah, so thank you so much. So I'll hand over the speaker to John Jalva.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Minister. Yes, they call them in the university, you have a lot of wonderful. Honorable His Excellency. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Jan, for the presentation. What a wonderful statement. But just before we move forward, I just want to recognize the presence of the Vice President of the University of the Gambia Students Union. Just as Alassane said, when he entered, I nearly run because I don't know what type of outfit he's wearing. He's African. As we celebrate our independence, it's good to be very African. That is the Thank you also for being here. And Alassane mentioned a very key that we need to change our attitude. It was good about young people talk about decolonizing the mind among Africans, especially on how we think towards our own continent. I think as a nation also, that is a very key area also that we need to look into. We need to be patriots compared to other countries. We don't want to say Gambians are not patriots, but that sense of patriotism is largely lacking. We continue referencing Senegal because it's the country that we have been recently. then we have seen what's happening. But you go there, you see students doing their bachelors, And they are doing their masters there. You see them, and they are doing their PhDs. But in the Gambia, if someone finishes bachelor's here, the person thing now it becomes a taboo. To do a master's here or to do a PhD here, you must travel outside the country. We are not saying that it's a must to stay, but also maybe it's as a result of the insufficient quality that we have. But also, we need to be very patriotic and stop blaming the West. Often, there are some of our colleagues who are Pan Africans, as they claim, all what they do is to blame white person is to blame the West, and they are still blaming the West. And I ask myself, who's the chairman of the American? Is it a white man? Who's the governor of West Coast? Is it a white man? Who's the president? It's not a white man. So all these people are our own people. They are from our own families. They are from our own communities. Because they can memorize an entire book, they can draw a diagram and label it. So once you know that you are the smartest people, but as I said, these are we are the same people that cannot even fix the tire of a bicycle. Once you have an issue, you will have to run all the way to a nearby mechanic to help us with that. But that is very important that young people in every nation need to have skills, and not only have skills, but also they need to have the required ability to also put these skills into use. And now moving forward to have our next speaker, is Mr. Sekti Jangay. Sekti Jangay will be taking us through the political participation and youth engagement, and what is the importance of young people participating in politics, and what is the importance of young people engaging in national development. Sekti Jangay.
Don't very well, and all of them are my professors. Definitely, as Pan African students, we have names that we address people. We don't address them like honorables and all that. We want to stick to our language. As you all the speakers here are trying to tell us that colonialism has changed us and everything. So we the Pan African students, what we want to do is we want to take people back to where we come from. So this way also can help us to develop as people. That is why we address you guys as comrades and you address us as comrades too. So my topic today is going to be the importance of youth participations in and engagement in politics. Because everything that we have said here, in fact, I should be here learning because the people here are the same people that have witnessed the past generations and clearly they are here with us. We are just 94 bones. I think we are just from, different areas to discuss issues. But as a young boy growing up in the provinces, I have realized a lot. That is why I become a participant in politics. Because I know the main reason why my father couldn't even have a small plot of land in Congo here is because he isolated himself. And equally my mother and anybody's mother and everything. That is why when I came, I said, okay, this is the same trend. You have to be there if you want to know what is happening. But you cannot be standing outside and at the same time keep pointing fingers on people that are at least inside there. That is why we try to put ourselves there to participate and also to learn through the process. But we have to look at ourselves as youths in this country. For me, I will agree that the British or the Western people come here to colonize us. But now I would believe that it is politicians that are colonizing the youths in this country. This is what I believe. And we have to wake up from this slumbering, try to challenge them, to authority, to everything. Because at the end of the day, even the politicians will use us as a reference that we are the backbones of this nation. But whenever we put them in the top there, what did they give us? What opportunity did they bring to us? These are the questions that we have to ask. I believe in the category that Gambian was not given independence in 18 February 1965. For one way or the other, we can argue from there, they are based on comparative literature. But what I know is a country shouldn't celebrate independence, still your people are suffering. It doesn't make sense. Because the reason why you have your independence as a country is to believe that you can control and manage your people. But since we celebrated 61 years yesterday, let's look at those that work for 61 years in this country. Some of them don't even have houses. They don't have places to stay. So are we celebrating poverty or are we celebrating progress? This is the question we have to ask ourselves. So as youth, we always want to engage ourselves. But the suppression in this country is too much. Because anytime you want to speak or you are in fact want to involve yourself, the main thing they will tell you is you are very young. And if you speak, you may find yourself in a place that you don't even understand. Because if, as a university student, they are telling us that, okay, you are in the university, you are complaining. Graduate, you will see where you work. Because those type of words keep suppressing people. You tell a young person, okay, why don't we do this? They will tell you, hey, at the end of the day, it's going to be my country. I'm not going to do it. Even the recent protest that Gala has went here, many youths did not take part because they fear what will happen in future. That is a form of suppressing the youth. And this is not what we want as youths. We want to be involved. We want to take part. We also want to serve our nation. Because this is the right time. It's not tomorrow. This is the right time. And we complain about sending people outside. They will not come back. Are we living in a productive society? This is a society that nurtures us to believe that the best is the best. This is a society that educates us that our own grandfathers escaped their sons with goals and other things and make us to hate our own people. The type of education that we learn in school, my friend, the writers that bring up that, I don't know, that education style should be sent to jail. Because these are the people that destroy the society. These are the people that believe us that we are living in a hopeless society. And at the end of the day, we are educated, but we have the mentality that our society is not a progressive society for us. We have to go there and get it and come back and continue misleading the people. Because that's what everybody does in this country. You don't even have the right to speak if you don't travel outside in this country. Those that speak and their voice are heard are the people that travel outside the country and come back, and they don't even have right education. But because they travel, we believe that they are the masterminds of everything. People in this country, we belittle them. Just like my professor said, if somebody gets his master's in the University of the Gambia, and somebody gets his master's in Ghana here, or let's say in England, the person in England is going to be more valued than the person who got master's in the University of the Gambia. And go to the University of the Gambia. You will know that people here are more conscious than people that even get masters outside. This is what we believe as youths, and this is what we are going to advocate for. And as Africans, we should learn about why Africa is a continent, why AU was formed, why people like Kwame Nkrumah and others fought for African liberation. And we have to wake up, learn from elders, and be a participatory body as youths. Anything rather than that, we are continuing to backlash our debate, and we will never promote as a society. Because at the end of the day, there is a limited age for participation. And if you lose that age, for you to participate again, it's going to be very difficult. Now, if today we don't want to do it and wait for tomorrow, are we sure that those coming tomorrow will do it too? This is my contribution regarding youth participation. We have to make sure we participate as youth. When it's time for voting, we go out there, register. It is very sad, a youth will tell you, it doesn't benefit me to vote. Because whether I vote or not, the system remains. The system will remain, of course, if you don't participate. Because as Plato will say, if you don't want to govern, somebody who is your inferior will govern. So as youths, go and take part. Vote, register yourself, and in fact participate in electoral systems. This is the way we can change Gambia, this is the way we can change Africa. Go to other African countries, you see youths taking part in politics. They even hold their government accountable. They force presidents to resign. But in the Gambia here, the saddest part is if you tell your family, I am going to protest, and like my mother, you will wait until you enter in the house. You will lock you there. You are not going. Because for her, protest is a challenge for the government. And it's in fact not religious for you to go for protest. These are the concepts that our parents are having. But also at least sit in the four corners of the class and get this enlightenment. If we are having the same concept, then why are we going to school? So this is my contribution, and thank you for having me here. I'm happy.
Very much. Mr. Sethi and Gay for that wonderful presentation on the role of young people, especially in national development. That we need to participate in politics and also we need to participate in legal games. As you said, it is widely said that we are the backbone of the society. They said we are the future leaders. We are the leaders of tomorrow. These are all statements that have been said by many people, especially towards young people. And I also agree with you that it is important for young people to participate in decision-making processes. This is what we have been seeing in many African countries of recent. If you look at in Ghana, I think the oldest ministers are not more than 45 years old. They are all between 45 down. If you go to Kenya, it's the same thing. But here, people think that you should participate in politics when you are 60 years old or when you are 70 years old. Someone is 50 years old, they are saying, oh, this is a young president. So I don't know how can someone who is 50 years old be a young party. But that's the calculator of logic that I don't get from our citizens. But it is very true, as you said, many people are afraid to participate in protest or to challenge the government. Because when you want to do that, especially on social media, they tell you, okay, you challenge the government, where when you get it, you will see which government is going to employ you. So if the government is supposed to listen to people's agitation and see how best to solve their problems, now stopping these same young people from getting employment, then how can that country move forward? How can you claim that those young people are the leaders of tomorrow? And also, as you said, many people believe that we should not celebrate our independence. When we come home, Ibrahim here was telling me there's no need for us people to celebrate independence because yesterday. Because clearly we are saying, why are we celebrating independence? What have we achieved? What are the progress that we have made from 1965 to the year 2026? What are really the changes that we have made? Have we reduced the level of corruption? Have we reduced the level of poverty that our citizens are facing? In our health facilities, are they more better now? Education-wise, infrastructurally. These are all areas that people are asking questions. And I hope that young people will take the lead to be able to participate in politics. Just to conclude before we move forward, I was even asking the question, or even making this comment. If the way young people are going out to attend concerts, Estes concert, Attacks concert, Jesus concert, Hussein, Acid, you name the acid artists that we have in this country. If that's the same way young people are participating in politics, I think we are going to make progress. But young people are not participating, they are not interested in this thing. We are not saying you don't need to participate in your concert. But we are saying as much as we think those things are important, but also someone that is going to govern your state for another period of 5 years. That is something also that should really concern you. So young people need to really participate in politics, and not only as people that are sitting on top of the vehicles and making noise, but people that are going to be speaking on rallies, people also that are going to be providing solutions to the problems that we are facing as a country. Thank you very much once again, sir, for that wonderful presentation. A lot of us here are still young, and therefore we need to really take the group by the hand. Now we want to move forward, and we are getting closer to the place where you can bring forward your questions and also your comments. We will definitely get to the question and answer sessions where we are going to hear your thoughts about where we are and also where we are heading to as a nation. But before we take Professor Abdullah, because customary when we have an event with the students, we also want to allow them to say one or two things. The Vice President is here. I do not think it would be ideal to leave this place without allowing the event and Ramadan. So if I were some preacher of sort, I would start prophesying or saying things that God allow us to be able to celebrate all these things, observe all these things on the same day, to tell us as a nation how we need to reflect on where we are, where we came from, and where we are, and also where we are going. But I also think I don't need to be a preacher to know that for us to observe Lent and Ramadan and also celebrate our independence on the same day is something that we need to really reflect on. And many of us claim to be religious people, whether we are Muslims or Christians. And also when we are at the university in our classes, I will tell them that I believe many of the people that claim to be religious in this country are not religious. Because many of the things that they're talking about, whether it's corruption, whether the abuse of power, are things that are not encouraged by our religion that we belong. So if people are really religious, if people are really observing what the faith teaches us, then we will have less corruption, or we will not even have corruption. So people are going to be obedient to the scriptures. But it's as a result of the disobedience of people. But us celebrating the independence and also observing these very important periods of our faith is to tell us as a nation that we need to reflect and also to move in the right direction as we hope to. Prof said that our future is really not looking attractive, especially as young people, that in the next 10 years, we will not see more changes. If you go to different communities today, even where I'm from, in Iran, in some of the parts in Iran, right now people are celebrating that now there's what they refer to as rural electrification. People are saying they never had electricity, now they have it. And people are claiming that they have roads. But we are going to say, even the road that we have in the Transgambia, which is I think 2002, 2004 road, now you could start seeing some issues with the road. And these roads that we have just in these areas here, we are just built within the sod line. Even then you have started seeing the issues with the roads. So to say that the roads are not really sustainable, they are not put in such a way that you can say these roads will last for the rest of time. But that was a wonderful presentation, Prof, on the future of the country. Before we move into the question and answer session, Mr. Banda, I think you want to make a comment.
Yeah, I just would appeal that we allow the ghostwriter of Kairaban, Dawda Jawara's book. So he has vast experience to share with us as an elderly person and also as a writer and having served under Jamaica's government as minister. He needs to share his opinion and we will all benefit from what he is going to tell us.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Well, I must thank my coordinator because he keeps us in order at the Writers Association. And he's an indefatigable man. At his age, he's running a whole office and having to drag us and the young ones along. And he has taken us from near zero to a secretariat and some respectability within our own kin. Sorry I got here late, but business held me up. But I'm glad I'm here. And I'm satisfied with the presence of the writers here in our secretary and the coordinator himself. We need issues to come up like this at the national level because we listen to interpreters, we listen to the people who want from the social angle, the political angle, to express themselves candidly as you have done here today. I've only listened to 2 speeches and the commentary by the chairperson. But then I sat here feeling, now we are being fed. Now your concerns have now become what we as writers at the Gambia Writers Association of the Gambia will begin to tell our people to pay attention to. It is absolutely important for us to know where the vibes are, as the lingo goes. May I disclose that I like pepper soup. And whenever my wife is busy fixing pepper soup, I am always drawn to the sound of the pressure cooker because she puts all these things in the pot, and I'm wondering when this thing will be ready because I want to go at my pepper soup. And she asked me to wait for the sound. I realize that all the turmoil that is happening in that pot are finally released through those little vents at the top of this pressure cooker. And anybody who is in government will be wise to pay attention to the pressure cookers in society. The pot is boiling nicely, but when it begins to rage, it is time to take a look at it. Now, if we are myopic about the quote unquote, this bastardized word, opposition, governance will tend to miss the point when the pressure cooker needs attention. But since the state or government, not just Gambia, not just America, not all over, they will not call you and say, hey, come and take over from us. One governor tried it in this country, criticize us where we go wrong. He was the first president to have ever said that. He was chairman at the time, as a matter of fact. Criticize us where we go wrong. But that promise only held for 100 days. Exactly 100 days after the chairman declared that, the war began on the press. And the press automatically became opposition. And then, of course, the rest is history, as we know what followed. But then writers are always at the back of this vanguard, making sure that they interpret society correctly in our books, and the things we would want to explain as to what our aches are and how we must solve these problems. That is why we need institutes like Nyangsane, the brains that will be within the background of that institute for social research. Just listen to that. Social research and justice. Because I'm a writer doesn't mean I understand the justice issues. I am not saying I don't. In the event that I don't, then I will listen to the pundits, the guys who know what they're talking about. And in the person of Dr. Sen sitting here, I am so proud of his presentation this morning, as candid as that was, to tell us where the pressure points are. Were I to, for some magical reason, saunter into government today, that statement is the first statement I will draw on my desk. To say, yes, the atmosphere is nice, the weather is good, this is that, but where are the pressure points? And as soon as we can identify those pressure points, then we begin to reinterpret our independence. Is this what we were promised 61 years ago? Why have we delayed in delivering? Dragging us all over 61 years when we had the hindsight of colonialism, when we had the hindsight of slavery. We should be the smartest people around because of the kind of history we went through. We should be the smartest guys on the block. You cannot go through slavery, go to colonialism, both a European and Arab colonialism, and then come here and express ourselves like we do today. It means we are not awake. We're still not awake to those things that will liberate us, to those things that will respell our independence. And since we have chosen the writing cadre, to be part of the writing cadre, I am always happy to hear from the minds like Dr. Send, Professor Send, and others who have expressed themselves here, so that we are guided as to how to listen to that pressure point, that pressure cooker. So when we interpret society in our novels, we begin to discover that we are speaking the same language. That we are not looking for writers who will be telling us how to live on the beach and park a Rolls Royce and a Lamborghini and call that success. What's a Lamborghini if your neighbor cannot buy Tapalapa? That's just the moral issue. How successful are you living on the opposite the Atlantic Ocean? When it's a string of beggars you drive by when you are going to your office, what is the point? But some people are not socially, as socially guided as all that, to have good observation. Therefore, there must be agents who will bring to their notice that that is not the way to go. So I'm looking at How do we come to a common point? Our focal issue then should be the harnessing of human capital. How did other countries poorer than ourselves do it? Those countries that have succeeded forgot about all these prestige projects and then concentrated on human capital. I was reading the winners of the Super Bowl. The winning team had 5 Nigerian players. The quarterback was a Nigerian, and the longest runner in yardage at that game, winning the Super Bowl 2026. 5 of them were Nigerian in that American team. And when I looked at their conquest, my cousin sent me the note and said, well, we don't hear about such successes about us. It's always about Africans and the Nigerians running the drug trade, running the this, that, the scamming, the corruption. And that's what we hear. And after a while, we get used to that. That's what we expect of ourselves. Right? Because I don't want to be a minister for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and I stop being minister, and then I sit down next to Mr. Yuba. I say, can I have $3, please? I would like to, fares to Banjul. Our tendency is, Mr. Balde, to turn to me and say, I thought you were once minister. He is teaching me not to be stupid next time I am minister. So if I'm awake to that sort of syndrome, when I become minister, I know what to concentrate on. Because I do not want Mr. Balde to sit down one day and tell me, you lack $5 to go to Banjul? Weren't you a minister? Weren't you a director before? We teach ourselves corruption. Our griots teach us corruption. Let us face it. Human capital. Doctor, in your visioning of the future, please help us with a document that focuses on the methods of harnessing human capital above all else. And then give us writers feed to write up. Absolutely. I thank you very much.
Thank you.
Presentation. I also thank you once again for yourself, Father, for reminding us that we need to allow this person to share some thoughts as we discuss about our nation and where also we are heading to as a country. You mentioned something that is very important. That as a result of the struggles that we have faced, there are countries within the continent that have fought for 11 years war, like the South. That alone should help people to be able to know that we need to develop our nations because we have had a very bitter experience in the past. But what happens is that our political leaders, once they're in office, many of them completely forget about the struggles that we have faced for independence. And also, you said we teach ourselves to be corrupt. We allow a genius also to make us corrupt. Just recently, when we went to assembly at the university, and then when we told, we met these people, Senegalese, who were selling, but they had their microphone and their small speaker, and they were playing their music. When we told them that we are from the Gambia, and then some of the students told the guy that I was named after Jeriba Kuyat because they were telling us about Jeriba. So once they were informed that I was named after Jeriba Kuyat, they started also singing, praising. So my friends asked that I need to also do it. So I don't know whether it's corruption. But
I hope you had enough fares to go back.
I did. And that was my own money. So, but thank you very much. For those of us who have done literature, so there is no way you're going to do literature, especially from junior high school, without doing the magical hours. And during those days, for those who are in the taught Gray Johnson is from Nigeria or Ghana, and then we come to the university also. when we do Gambian literature, and then we look at Edward Francis Small, and then also we see Mr. Nana, Great Johnson, and then we know that yes, this person is not Nigerian. This person is Gambian. Well, thank you very much for the presentation. We now want to move forward. I'm sure many of you here have been here since the beginning, and you've been listening to all the different people speaking. And now we equally want to give this as an open opportunity for people
Let
to
me
share
add
their
that the School of Journalism at the university created it.
Yeah, it is. Thank you. Thank you for that. So we want to give this opportunity for people that have questions or comments that they want to make, especially with regard to what we're discussing here about the independence that we're commemorating, so that they can share their thoughts. And we want to also encourage women here to participate, to speak and also to ask questions. Just like what Hussein told us, the role that women play towards the liberation or the regaining of independence of this country. The floor is now.
I am Anna Dan. I want to ask, after independence, was Gambians focusing more on consumption rather than development? Because I do hear about parents, grandparents in Gambia before was nicer compared to today, because they were like the foods were not that expensive compared to today. So I want to know whether those people were focusing more on consumption rather than development.
The Gambia was a very rural community, and most people had farms, rice field farms, and goose farms, and so forth and so on. Life was rudimentary. We had not really entered into this modern era of globalization, which has, in so many ways, imposed certain lifestyles that were foreign to us for a long time. Gambia, in my view, even in the midst of our poverty, was a good place to live. We played. We had enough. And it was not until much later in our lives that we realized that we were relatively deprived. But that didn't really affect us. In fact, it made us better people, I believe. I think the deprivations that we all suffered, at least my generation, forced us to pursue whatever form of education that was available. We were studious. We had few distractions. We didn't have the internet and all that stuff. In fact, you had to study under a candle or go to downtown Banjul in order to have light.
Street lights.
Yes. So it was poverty, but at the same time, it was relative. Very few people live beyond that. And I would say in the last 25 years, the world has changed. Technology, communication, music, you name it. All these have changed and they have a global impact. The dimension is larger. You can watch TV today and see what is happening in other parts of the world. In Gambia, if you lived in, for instance, gold, you hardly knew what was happening in Basel. But today, with globalization and technological developments, I would say things have only improved marginally. And the future is, as I was saying earlier, unless we get up and reformulate our strategies, it would appear to me that things would be very difficult, to say the least.
National development. If you look at America, I studied in America. I was there for 4 years. $1 can feed you It depends on where you go to get the type of food. You can get a big fat chicken, a turkey, for $1, and you can go and use just salt and water and cook it, and the whole day you have food to eat. But can $1 feed any person here? Even $100 today cannot feed you. Why? Now, I have observed over the years, if you look at the population, Gambian population, from Brikama to in the greater Banjul area, everybody is here. Over 60% of the population. And we only have 3 months of rainfall. And most of the people here in the greater Banjul area have farmlands out in the country. Now, why don't we go back just for 1 or 2 months in the season? Now, farming is so easy. You use equipment to farm. Within 1 month, you have 1 hectare farm of any type of crop. Then you come back.
About your works. It was a dream for me to one day sit with all of you. First of all, I'd like to invoke the spirit of our independence. I do not know if truly we are independent as a people, but as many would argue, we would also value and say we are independent as a people. But the definition of independence still remains relative. What one determines to be independent may be different from what another determines to be independent. My argument will specifically focus on the very crux of this topic, where we are and where we are heading to as a people. When they argued that we were independent in 1965, we were just 300,000 Gambians in a country of 11,000 square kilometers. After 65 years, after so many elections, we have never in our entire history as a people registered 1 million voters. Until today, we struggle to meet a population of 3 million. For me, as a young person, growing up with the foundation of our history as a country, how we've journeyed to where we are today, 3 presidents, 2 republics, I do not think there should be any government whatsoever that have an excuse to better the lives of the people that are still struggling to register 1 million voters. There is no excuse whatsoever to claim that you have developed your country, high debt, overhang, unemployment. In the infant stages of our independence, agriculture used to employ about 70% of our population. But today, government is the highest employer. How many percent of our population are government employed? That we are creating jobs for young people. How many jobs have you created? Evidence of job creation is the creation of factories. To say that they have employed young people, they have employed Gambians. If you, the state, as the highest employer of our people, how many have you employed? They are in their thousands, not even 100,000s. So how so are you that employment is growing? These are arguments that we receive. But I want to say this far, that it is us, the people, who surrender some of our rights for the state to act on our behalf. There is no excuse. The authority and the power of the state has no limitation, has no barriers. The power of the state extends to every of our activity as Gambians, even things that we thought to be private. When you are born, you will be given a certificate to establish that you are Gambian. Even when you marry, there must be a certificate to establish that you are married. Even when you are dead, there must be a certificate to establish that you are dead. And all of this came from the state. So even the things that we think that are private, the state has its hand in it. So there is no excuse whatsoever for the state to better the lives of 3 million people. And also, as my brother Tijak was saying, that young people, when they stand in critic against the state will just send a signal that, okay, wait until you graduated and see who would employ you. Because they have the upper hand in this, because they are the highest employer today. So they know too well that young people, the only target that we have is to be done with our studies and seek for employment from the state. The state, knowing that they will such powers to employ young people, and it is the dream of every young person going to these institutions to be employed by the state, they recognize it. And then this is what they do. They restrict us, they limit us, they subdue us, they subjugate us, because they do not want us to speak. They do not want us to be heard. More often than not, they would argue development in terms of road construction, not even really infrastructure. When we ask the state, what is development? The argument would always be the roads, the new roads that they have constructed. While we, the people, remain underdeveloped. Development must be human-centered. Ask yourself as an individual Gambian, how progressive is your life? How far have you come in terms of human development? Because what I understand human development to be, at least the 4 basic necessities of life must be met. And this is at the disposal of the state to provide. Right to life, education, health, and also housing. This is something that the state must provide. And these are resources within the state's reach. But today, we are from communities, each and every one of us look at housing. You go to a house owner, and they will tell you need to pay 6 months. And the state is looking at this. The state is not paying anybody 6 months advance salary. But they will watch people with power and influence to make you pay 6 months rent a house that you haven't lived in for 6 months. We don't complain, we don't talk about this, we don't point our fingers at this, but we point our fingers at each other. It's not us versus us. It's not left versus right. It is us versus the state that we surrender our rights to act on our behalf. Until this understanding is shared and held by everyone, we always keep on blaming each other. We go to the hospitals. What we know too well now, that is from the position of the state, is to frame every argument. You know, when you go to Marina Parade, you see at our main referral session, you see people, escorts, lying down on the streets. You will bring an individual that is admitted to the hospital, but instead you will fall sick by virtue of the fact that you sleep in the streets, and you will be exposed to mosquito bites, you will be exposed to sicknesses and other harmful threats out there, until you, the escort, will also become the patient. The state would tell us that's a hotel, that people will travel back from the West and come here to seek for medical care. But then we will see our arrowheads mother will leave this country to seek treatment elsewhere. Take her to the hotel. These are the things that we would question. But the moment you are a critic of the state, you are labeled as bad. You are labeled as uncultured. You are labeled as an individual who do not respect our values as Gambians. This is not how we progress as a country. We cannot continue to blame one another. The only thing we know as young people is fanfare, merriment, come elections. We climb gilligillis, we eat benachin, and we take t-shirts. For 5 years, that single benachin of that single day, that gilligillis that we climb, and also the t-shirt that we wore, how can that sustain you for 5 years? We do not ask ourselves these questions. We would continue to blame ourselves. Education today, if you are not from a privileged home, you cannot be, it's like, it's a right that is taken away from you. Pardians are more than the entire tuition fee of all university students, master's, PhD, and bachelor's alike. Would the state consider, look deeply into this? Every day, every year in, year out, what we would receive is our year-long budget. But then, in this budget, you will see furniture and fittings as a budget line. You will see office equipment as a budget line. You will see stationery as a budget line. But when you go to these offices, you meet furniture like this, you can look at them, they are labeled. For instance, Ministry of Health, MH/2013/00. That's the furniture scope. But every year from 2013 to 2026, there's a budget line for furniture and fittings. It's like from 2013 to 2026, 9 years, furniture and fittings is been budgeted for. But there has been no furniture that's been bought in 9 years. But we don't question where these monies are going to. 9 years, and it is in millions, in hundreds of millions of dollars. Where are these monies going to? We don't question. Year in, year out, our debt service would be increasing, but they will tell us that they are developing. You cannot be developed when you have a chain around your neck and your hands. That's not development. Last year, 11 billion, this year, 13 billion in debt service. Something that could have been invested on agriculture and promote agriculture. This is just 11,000 square kilometers for God's sake. There's no excuse. Even me, John, and the Students' Union, when we are true to ourselves and our country, we can develop this country in just 10 years. There's no excuse. The land is fertile. The weather here is always good. 3 months of rainfall. Where is the excuse? We have an opening to the Atlantic Ocean. Why can't we be developed as a country? 10 kilometers south, 10 kilometers on the north. Where's the excuse? But every day the state would use us against each other. But this is something that we fail to understand. When you are a critic of the state, that is when you are hated most. Primarily from your household, from your very family, from your own household. They will tell you, okay, we don't do this here. Who else would challenge the state? The state is the only entity that we must question for our development, for our health, for our education, for our feeding. We cannot question any entity because we are not living in a state of anarchy. We give them power and authority to act on our behalf. We must always question. This bandera flying, color politics, no, that's not why we are here. You must be a critic. You must ask social-related questions, economic-related questions, political-related questions, security-related questions, and all these questions must be directed to the state because they have the power and authority given to them by you and many like you as citizens to act on your behalf. Today, people receive very meager salaries. You go to households from let's say the most humble of households, at least $300 is for breakfast. 500. In fact, fish now is 500. $600-700 is for fish money. Dinner 300. Gas, power, water, electricity, credit. At least a breadwinner would spend $1,400-500 a day. Multiply that by 30 days. It's about 40-something dollars. Imagine if that individual receives a salary of $5,000-6,000. Is living on a deficit of $32,000 to $33,000. Where is he or she getting that compliment from? Is either the individual is highly indebted or the individual is somehow in the seeds corrupt. Now we know where our problems are coming from, but we don't question these things. So at least we have great minds here that can write and inform thoughts that this is about time, that we reflect on our realities as a people, that we look back to our history, where we are and where we intend to be. The fact that the West seems to be more enticing and magnetic to drag us young minds to go to the West is because we think there are systems in place that can make show of our progress as young people. But this is absent in this country. You cannot entirely blame us for absconding, for leaving this country, because you cannot fight an entire government on your own. If there is no single acceptable understanding shared by many young people, it will be difficult for us to progress. So as the preacher would always say, I can give very much shorter sermons, but when I start to speak, I feel too lazy to stop. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank you very much, Mr. Gaba, for that wonderful presentation. That our government have no excuse whatsoever to give, that they need to deliver on the mandate. And then we talk about also surrendering our rights. Those of us who need political science will know about the social contract theory that we have given some of our rights to the government, and we expect them in return to provide to us some key service. And I used to say, I cannot bring someone to my house who's a child there. I asked you to lay ties here. You said no. You're going to lay ties in another place. That is how it happens with us in the government. That we put them in this position, and what we ask them to do, they said, no, I'm going to do my own thing in other place, which is quite very sad. But also, you need to really keep trusting that one day things can become better for us as a nation. Moving forward, as I said earlier, before we have Professor Sen speak, it's important that we listen to different perspectives, especially from the elderly ones and also from the younger generation, so that we can be able to see where we are as a country and also where we are moving as we speak. Also, but before we invite Professor Sen, I nearly said Professor. When we invite Professor Sen, we also want to take this time to recognize the presence of our uncle, our father, Mr. Ronald K. Johnson, who is here with us. And also, we want to also plead, if possible, we can just join Mr. Bale here so that we can be able to be a bit closer as we look forward to discuss a very important something quite bad States of America. And equally also lectured sometime here back in the University of Uganda. And it's very passionate in having discussions that are centered towards having a progressive nation. It's important, and it's a rare privilege for us to be able to have it here. As Ibrahim Jata says, for those of us who are doing political science, we read the works of Professor Sen, and even before going to beauty, we worked in TRS. So later, having an opportunity to be able to meet him and also be able to interact with him is a great privilege that we don't take lightly, and we are grateful for that. And we want to put our hands together even before he speaks.
For that very kind introduction. I would like to say hello to all of you and to congratulate you for attending this session. We are small in numbers, certainly, but the caliber we have here and the discussions we are having clearly indicate that in a larger perspective, this would not have been possible. I want to single out the young ladies for also making time to come to this event. In many instances, young women who have been going through the process of education seldom come to these. So we are very grateful that you are here, as well as the young men who have also taken the time, and the leaders of the university, student leaders, for coming to this occasion. I also want to take a moment to thank NSI, the Nyangsani Institute, for undertaking several occasions in the promotion of our culture, our intellectual backdrop, as well as things that we hold dear. I am particularly impressed also that Mr. Balde is here. He is part also of a very important institute that works similarly as the NSI. So I am truly very delighted that we are here not only to celebrate Gambia's independence, but also to look forward to what may occur as a result. I was given the task of projecting, looking into the present, figuring out what has happened in the past, and then on that basis, talk about what is likely to occur in the future. It is a difficult task, but it is a task that must also be taken. Because we can talk about the present and the past, but at the same time, it is equally crucial for us to venture in, uncertain as it is, about our future. This is what I will try to do as we go on. My task, therefore, is really very difficult. But based on what we have been hearing from this very eloquent gentleman, I can use that as a backdrop to predict and venture into the future. Talking about the future is at best very hazardous, let me say. But I think we need to take time to look at the parameters within the present and on that basis project what is likely to occur in 5, 15, 20 years. But I wrote an article yesterday, I don't know how many of you saw it, and it was to really celebrate our country. I was born in the early 1950s. I have gone through Gambia, and many of us who were born at that time went through the Gambia during very difficult times. There were hardly any roads. Water supply was minimum at most. We relied on wells. Water wasn't sanitized. We walked to school. In fact, there was little transportation, so to speak. And I can go on, the list can go on and on and on for a long time. What I'm suggesting is, Gambia has come a long way. If you were born in 1950 or even earlier, you can see the you can see the changes that have occurred in this country. I remember going to Georgetown when I was at amateur. From Banjul to Georgetown will take you almost 2 to 3 days. There were no roads. These were just feeder roads. Roads that did not really connect to anything. Ultimately, what I'm suggesting to you is, Gambia has come a long way. And I do believe that there have been so many changes in the country that promise at least a better future. Let me just go to my prepared speech and share with you what I had published yesterday. February 18th, 2026 is a special day for many Gambians. We have a lot to be thankful for as a nation. The country enjoys relative peace, vibrant religious and ethnic communities, and a stable political environment. Independence Day, which was yesterday, Lent and Ramadan vividly symbolize our inseparability. We are a one people with different orientations, different ethnicities, and so forth and so on. February 18th, 2026, in my view, vividly symbolizes what is inseparably a nation. We are a nation regardless of how one defines it. We are bound by a single blood, jurisprudence, and aspirations for a better and more equitable and socially just country. This is an aspiration that we all have. Indeed, as I said, the Gambia at 61 has made fair progress in its development from a truly underdeveloped country of hardly any infrastructure to a semblance of political stability today. For those of you who are 20, 25, 30, even 40, this may not seem relevant. But for those of us who traveled the country, or tried to travel the country, we had a lot of difficulty. What we have in Gambia today, therefore, may still represent an improvement over our state of affairs 61 or more years ago. Yes, things are difficult in Gambia. I've lived here for about 6, 7 years, and I've experienced pretty much the difficulties, the challenges, not even money, but just the sheer challenges that we face on a daily basis. In fact, in those days, there was little access to drinking water, especially if you lived in Salem, or in Fulbe, or in other parts of the world. So I'm doing this to give you an historical background of what transpired before this present condition. There was little access to drinking water, other than wells, no major paved roads, and life expectancy was relatively very low. It was 35 years. If you were born in Gambia in those days, your life expectancy was picked at 35. And this was really very low compared to other countries. Well, conditions are better today, certainly. There are still a lot of issues that we need to address. The bulk of our population really thrives at the brink of starvation, poor health care, and unsuitable education. Some of you have touched on the education that we have in the country. There's a lot that we need to do to improve on education. In fact, I do believe that we need a major overhaul of our education systems to make them more productive and to link better with our communities. A general state of disorder actually happens or takes place in this country. There is poor leadership that is engulfed in donor charity, rising crime, and deepening hegemonic control and confusion. These remain quite the situation as we speak in our country. Now, I want to progress maybe slowly and maybe briefly talk about our governance system, which really is a vehicle for social control and manipulation. And this has been the case since independence. From independence to date, we have contributed immensely to Gambia's poverty and development. In other words, what I'm suggesting is, what we say as being important since independence, and what we also talk about in terms of improving our human condition has, for the most part, been dealt a very, very heavy blow. Now, if you look at the times that we are concerned about, the Gambia was a democracy, or a quasi-democracy, from 1965 to 1994. And then came the military. And of course, came the Barrow administration. What I'm suggesting is that Barrow has modified and put in place a gentler, autocratic political system and a ruling class that serves the interests of those in power. Now, few perform their national duties, that is the elite, the politicians. And for the most part, the population watches helplessly as they engage in their activities. I think an occasion like this is very important because we are discussing the plight of a people. We are discussing the problems and the obstacles that we face in the so-called development process. What I'm suggesting at the end of the day is self-interest, self-promotion, and pretense. This is what rules the Gambia today. And government, to enhance its chances to do better, must begin to untangle itself and its policies into maintaining and providing for the poor and the general population. I guess what I'm also suggesting is government to enhance its chances of winning the presidential polls in 2026 is anxiously engaged in maintenance of poorly maintained roads, and as a result, pushing the country into dire economic conditions. Because in a couple of years, these same roads will have to be worked upon again. Now, the young are particularly vulnerable, I believe. University students, anybody who is over 35 or less than 35 stands to not benefit from the workings of the government as we have it today. So basically I'm saying that the young are particularly vulnerable and attracted to the bad way to sustain themselves, their parents, and friends and family. What I'm suggesting at the end of the day, the prospects for death through the bad way is immense. And we have lost, or at least been close to somebody who has lost their lives in this grueling journey to Europe. In sum, what I'm suggesting is Independence Day, Lent, and Ramadan call on Gambians to think deeply about the current state of affairs, our future, and especially the future of youngsters. This, to me, is where the country should be focusing on. The confluence of these three major events, and Independence Day in particular, calls on all of us to basically deepen our commitment to promoting this country into a better future. My task in this discussion was primarily to talk about the future. I think with the short backdrop, I can now delve, perhaps briefly, into what the future holds. As I said earlier, this is a hazardous task. But I have intimated that the Gambia has really taken the wrong course. Starting out in 2023, we are now on the road to further underdevelopment, inequality, and possible political violence as we speak. And I say this basically because the country has gotten increasingly unequal socially, politically, and more importantly, economically. We, in the past, used to say that Gambia didn't have a class system. We are all ethnic groups. Yes, we are still ethnic groups. But in addition to becoming or being ethnic groups, there has emerged in the country in the last 50 or more years, maybe less, a distinct class structure that enables some individuals who belong to it better access to education, better access to employment, and access suddenly to housing and other benefits. And the bulk of the population, I would say over 60%, maybe even 70% of the population live very precarious lives, so to speak. So the future is at best precarious. If Gambia continues to live, or Gambians continue to live the way they are, it could call for a lot of instability, political instability, possible political violence, and that would not go well for the lives of most Gambians. What I'm suggesting is we are now at the precipice. We are now floating slowly, but gradually, into a scenario that would breed conflict and violence in our situation or in our country. Yes, there are ameliorating, or there are factors that may dampen the possibilities for this kind of situation to arise. Gambians are still a very deeply religious people. We are basically one family. This is reflected not only in our relationships, in the religions we share, but also, more importantly, in the outlook. The culture itself serves as a binding force for the entire community. These may be the factors that may push us away from the kind of violence, political violence, that is likely to occur. But these only have so much impact, ultimately. At the end of the day, when people are hungry, when people don't have a voice in how their country is run, when people are alienated from the general system, these are the things, or these are the factors that would lead an individual to engage in massive protests and political violence. The state, on the other hand, is ready to use its weapons to quell any form of violence that is likely to occur. So the future really in the Gambia, to me, as I sit and project into the future, is going to be a repetition of what has been happening in the last 10 years. Society has basically been undermined so severely that the Gambianness that we share is being ebbed away slowly. So ultimately, what I'm suggesting is the country is on a road to greater instability, greater poverty, until government policy and individuals and groups come together to force government or to push government to engage in activities that really support families, students, and the general population. The poverty rate in this country is very significant and is likely to get worse. Medical care and other factors are also likely to diminish very significantly. So the future of our country, based on current trends, is not very positive. It is a trend or a combination of trends that ultimately could lead to greater disenfranchisement, little political activity. If you look around Gambia today, it seems like we are all into different things. We are all engaged in activities that promote self, not so much the country itself. And I think the bureaucracy, as we know it, is a good example for this. The government plans that I see, development plans, that I look at, are pretty much the same. They talk about growth, they talk about equity, they talk about a lot of other things that are very appealing to the population. But at the end of the day, they cannot deliver. So ultimately what I'm suggesting is, we are in a very difficult situation. There are a few people or a few classes that might enjoy the country, but for the bulk of us, or for the bulk of the population, the country is going to get more difficult as we speak. Our over-reliance on aid, our reliance on Europeans and Americans to pull us through is not the way to go. In fact, I believe that our entire economic system needs to be looked at in order for us to ameliorate the problems that are likely to arise as a result of what is happening today. So, in conclusion, the future doesn't look very, very promising. The future of Gambia doesn't look very promising. If we continue in the current process, the consequences are going to be quite dire. But I'm hopeful that young people like yourselves, those of you who are agitating for change, those of you who are engaging in activities that are progressive, those of you who are engaged also in educating others, would possibly make a difference. I am also quite tentative when I say that, because it seems to me many of the young people that I come across on a daily basis are eager to join the system as it is. Yes, they would like to make some changes, but at the end of the day, they want to enjoy the jobs they have, they want to travel, they want to have this and that and that, but that is not what we're talking about. I think Gambia needs a fundamental structural change. A structural change that would convert our aspirations, would divert our current direction into looking more internally. We cannot be depending, getting ideas from the outside, being managed, being controlled by institutions that are very foreign to our everyday living and well-being. Ultimately, I will say thank you. Thank you for coming. The group is small, but it's a very significant group. What we have here today signifies the commitment that all of you have. And it is you, the younger people, who have at their hands the future of this country. And I thank you for coming, and hopefully we can get to see you. Thank you.
Very also we are heading to establish. That alone should equip us to be able to know that we need to develop our nation. The purpose is that our political leaders, once they're in office, many of them completely forget about the struggles that we have faced for independence. And also, we met these people, Senegalese, who were selling this, but they had their microphones and their small speakers, and they were playing their music. When we told them that we are from the Gambia, and then some of the students told the guy that I was able for Jelibabia because they were telling us about Jelibabia. So once they were informed that I was able for Jelibabia, they started also singing, praising. So my friends asked that I need to
Keep the tone.
also do it. So I don't know whether there is corruption.
I hope you had enough fails to go back.
That was my own.
Back to the land, and we have the opportunity to go back to the land. For me, what government is supposed to do is to make sure that every year they go out and have a strong campaign. The Minister of Agriculture must have a campaign to say, look, we are working with the alcalos, with the chiefs, with the regional governors to provide us with areas of farming where anybody from this area, the Great Banjul area, if you want to go back, just tell us where you want to go and farm. The chief, the regional governor, and also the alcalo of that particular area will be able to provide you with land. And we are putting up some form of resources to help people. But we will have to recover those resources from your own produce. If we do that and show these people the direction we go back to the land, we'll be able to feed this country. But without that, we are all sitting down here during the 3 months of rainfall and not going back to farm. We will not be able to feed this country. And it's not only a government responsibility, but for me, I blame people. Even my place at Wellingara is, of course, is what, 71, 60 by 41 by 38. It's a huge area, big. But every year, I plant cassava, maize, sweet potato. Even recently, we have just harvested our sweet potato. I'm not saying I'm able to feed the family of 10 people, that, but at least it's contributing. And there is even a method now you can grow sweet potato in a bucket, using a bucket. Even in your house in Banjul, it's possible to produce something that will add to your feeding rather than having to go to the market every day to buy those things. We must feed ourselves and we must go back to the land. That one is a must. We have to feed ourselves. And development without feeding the people is almost nonsensical in my opinion. Any country that has prospered is first fighting hunger. People, if you go to the office hungry and you don't expect to get money, fish money tomorrow, you have to even stop the office work and see how you can get money. That's where corruption starts. So you must be able to feed yourself cheaply to be able to concentrate on even development. Thank you very much.
Remember that I told you before, in the early 60s, the political parties, when they went campaigning, all of the villages they went, the women were the ones who were able to produce the feeding. And they fed them very well. And every village that you have youths there too. The women will make sure that they had a community farm. For example, I was born in Kuntawu, just 3 miles from Jawara. Kuntawu, Wasu, Tuba, Lokunda, every village there had a farm of groundnuts and rice. So that we went to a point, up to the time, we were able to have independence. When the political parties, Jawara and others went around, they called the youths to go and take some of the rice and the dressing that was stocked. Every village had a farm. And some of those farms, in Mandinka, you know what I'm talking about, couple farms. So that even if they had an emergency or somebody's house burned, all they needed to do, they don't only take out from what they kept. They go in there and take out from what is already stocked. And this keep going on. But you could see up to 5 years ago, if you go to the countryside, like I told you before, like the other guys in the diaspora over 34 years with Agra and others. You travel into the countryside, you will be surprised. There are hardly any youth there. Everybody is in the urban area. I make you wondering, I don't know what these people will learn, because mass movement, where the work is coordinated among the youth, has been very, very effective. Even they had problems with China. we talked to the ambassador one time. He was telling us how Jawara went to China 4 times. And one of the times, even when Jawara, not before Jawara, Nkrumah himself, talked to Mao and Chu and Lai. And the first thing he told me, see, we don't have much. We cannot do, but we can do a whole lot. And he said, what is the advice? He said, give me a bowl of rice and a cup of water and send me anywhere and I can feed myself. And this is the same thing that was happening in the provinces. You can hardly buy rice. Everybody produced. And we had a heavy population. There was no town or village that had a population of more than 10,000. Hardly in the provinces. But they were able to feed themselves. So you find that the political dispensation was very confusing too, because instead of elevating the women to develop on what they were doing agriculturally, everybody backed down. They did not invite them into parliamentary positions. They were not advised. Students in the colleges, like I told you earlier, could not name you 5 politicians or 5 political leaders who were going with Sanjali Bojang and others, to be able to fight for our independence and other things, because it wasn't there. So you find that once you put the women down in terms of developing what they have, all your production goes down because they were the organizers. Okay, thank you.
As science students, we listen to people like very well, and we talk about here our past, present, and we predict the future by using these tools. So I think you should also bring in some ideas that will make sure we protect us from the precarious moments that you have highlighted here. So I would like to ask, what are your solutions, or what are the advice that you will give to us that will make sure we will try to put a barricade on what is about to happen? Thank you.
Question. And what I would suggest is that we come together as a nation, first of all, to define what our challenges are. And in doing so, draft a policy paper that would tell us as precisely as possible what we should engage in. What you have asked me, I have done in my past as a lecturer. I think what we need in Gambia, really, is an education process that focuses on us, what we have, what we want, and where we want to go into the future. If we focus on the orthodoxy as they have it today, the World Bank, the IMF, and so forth and so on, we will have a very difficult time finding where we're going, where we need to go, and how we're going to solve our problems. So solving Gambia's problem is going to be a collective effort. It will require each and every Gambian to come to a hall like this and focus on the things that we need. First, we need to decide, what type of a country do we want? Do we want a country that is reliant on others? Or do we want a country that is independent, that is self-reliant, that is focused on its citizens, that is focused on its future, and so forth and so on? Ultimately, what I'm suggesting is the state structure, the bureaucracy, and whatever else we have that manage our economy and the people are insufficient. Their mores, their values must be underpinned by Gambian or African values. In other words, we cannot be trying to develop ourselves and taking the mantra from another country, another culture. In other words, cultural identity is important. Then as a collective, we must be able to explain what it is that we want for ourselves, our children, and then for our future. I have basically argued in the past that we need a collectivist social system, a collectivist political economy that looks into providing the desires, the needs, and the aspirations of our population. We are really quite disoriented with the system we have.
One point,
Yeah.
you're talking about collectivity.
Yes.
Now, how can we be collective in a society where we have divergent political parties who are preaching differently? And I particularly, I see political parties are a dividing factor to the society. And whenever we talk about collectivity, political parties contribute to the part of dividing us. So
Yes.
I want us to relate the idea of bringing political parties and how they become a de facto to collectivity. Yeah.
The political system itself is probably not very appropriate in dealing with our conditions. What I'm suggesting is we need to have conferences. We need to have national assemblies that actually reflect the aspirations of citizens. We cannot have leaders that are alienated from the larger aspirations and commitments of the population. We need to have leaders that really are of us, you and I, who think like us, who believe in the things we believe in, and not leaders who are there primarily to serve their own ends. It's a difficult process. What I'm suggesting is this will need for all of us to come together, like-minded, different-minded, to discuss directly where it is we want to go. A good start would be a place like this. Let's talk about things, let's have some ideas, let's spread the ideas, and hopefully we can organize at some point to address some of these fundamental issues. It's going to be difficult. You might not even be here at that point. But when we started now, by the time you and the others are gone, you would have made an impact. This is a slow process. It is not revolutionary. It is going to take some time before a fundamental change occurs, not only in the way we think, but in the way we also do things. It's a difficult question, but I hope I've given it.
Because with the question he was asking about, how the political parties put stuff together, differences and stuff like that, you find that in our case, in most cases, we will find that, let me take even an example of the coalition parties. He was there, and he was there when we started to form them, during the time of Jammeh. The guys themselves who were there, majority of them, who later then jumped ship, we try to get the idea that what they need to understand was somewhere confusing political parties with movements. Movements and political parties are different. And that was the main problem we see that was going to come up. Because with the movement, we can go all the way to South Africa, and just like before Jesse Jackson, different people can join different movements, but they have a collective aim to do something. And it did happen, in Gambia, in many districts, and Ghana, and even South Africa. People with different parties can come together for a common cause. And that common cause, for example, is going to benefit everybody. But once you get that cause, what you can still get out of this thing, but become the ideas and the benefits of you understand what I'm saying? It's there. So you can split up later. South Africa is a good example. And Jesse Jackson, who just died a few days ago, we used to talk about this with him in Mississippi, where he saw that there were so many political parties in South Africa. And we even had some whites who belong to different, they believe in a movement of overthrowing apartheid. But they were not Africans, and therefore they took weapons to distinguish. So you do find that you can have a common objective, as a movement. But once you get to that and you are able to educate people from this thing, the parties can break up. And that's what normally happens in many countries. After they have the objective, they have to declare their objective, they can still maintain their parties. And this is the problem we have. When you were doing part of the problems we have when you were doing the orientation stuff. You have all of them were not listed. I wouldn't name some, but I could have given you names. I can confirm, and he can confirm. Who stood that their parties is not going to, back down in this thing? Tell him that to bring down Germany, I'm just not being singular, right? We need a collective, and it is the movements, NTRP, UDP, all of them can come together as a movement. And they tend to understand the difference between a party and a movement. Movement does not have an ideology. And this was how some were able to see, okay, we all can come together and bring down this man. But after we bring down this man and the system, we can now go on with our parties separately in a democratic fashion. And this is the confusion you have still here. Some of the people jumping today, you wouldn't name his name, but he is there. He was one of the men in Atlanta. When we brought these people together in Atlanta, we paid millions. It was a two organizations, Agera. We brought them there. And they were fighting each other. And we made sure that before we get out of that house, we must sign this. They're right here in Atlanta. People were crying that night. For the first time, they had Gambians in Atlanta. We've been in the Western Hemisphere for a while. You have a hall full of Gambians. They couldn't get nothing together. And a young man, less than 40 years, was laying hell in the country. He said, we will not get out here today without signing this. And people came in. Women, this thing, people, what you call it? Pledging their money and stuff to make sure that we don't get out here until we have a movement or an organization that we can call the democratic one, which is ready to fight for this. And we agreed. So but there was no money, and we made sure that we have to start right now. Fatimata Jallo, when most of the money was collected and so Abla is here. This money was divided into all of the parties that came, except Lamin Juara. Why Juara? This is Mayala looking for everything. Lamin Juara party, then he was just coming down, was the only one that took the money and gave us the money back. Dam said they will not take it. Let us share it between the parties. UNDP said that they were not going to do this thing. I mean, I'm not trying to get it. But anyway, you get the idea what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So when we did that, we made sure they were surprised. That's why we couldn't do it. That is nonsense. Gambians have been forming parties and something since before, what you call it? I mean, they have been working as political leaders since before EF-Small. And EF-Small, we have small, able to show us that we can unite as a people. So it took time for them to understand that we have to have a mass movement, and this mass movement get to be very genuine, in which we can have people belonging to different parties, but then have a common objective to do this. And this is why we were able to do it. We have branches everywhere around the United States. Somewhere UDP, somewhere PPP, but all of them put money, and in the end, what happened? When we gave it to them, Fatima and others were able to come. Allah can verify this, he can verify this. The amount of money we gave them was able to help them because they came as a movement. But we told them as a movement, we are not going to give any funds to any party unless they are able to do this. And this is how NAP formed. I'm just giving you an example because you guys are young people, but that's the truth. So out of that money, they were able to, I won't name his name, but anyway, he's next to Hussein. He told us that Let's be know that they sometimes did not have $100 to be able to put gas in the transportations to go to Brufu or Sukuta or this Basel and Yoruba. And this was very moving. Some people were crying and you mean we can fight this man. We can't overthrow this system, just by letting these people can do it. Because he had money. I'm just being personal now. I hope you understand. But he's no longer here. But this is what happened. And these things do happen. Because you have some dangerous sellouts. You can see them. They are the ones that start wars. They are the ones that create those problems. And that's why when you have people, elders who can tell you examples of what happened today, you need to probably learn with it. Because the African proverb in Ghanaian says that, new brooms sweep clean, but old brooms know where the dirt is. Thank you.
First, any country you look at in the whole world, water, electricity, road network, peace, health, agriculture, education. If you have this, you are almost 50% or 60% solving the country's problem or problems. Now you need to, after you have this, you need to go back at the grassroots level. For me, actually, you should even go back to the household level and start to find out what do people need to do at the household level. And how do they want to solve their own problems first? Then you build it up from there. Linked to this infrastructure I have mentioned, peace, education, health, agriculture added, any other party would have to accept it, because what else would they be doing other than this? So that is fundamental to development. Infrastructure, peace, health, education, agriculture, road network, water, electricity. If you have these, you are on the right path to development. Thank you.
The question. We want to begin to round up now, because I know we are in Lent and Ramadan.
I want to make my last statement.
Okay.
You can hold me.
Okay.
I am really very grateful to the Nyangsane Institute for being so innovative in so many ways. First, the first innovative idea that they have put into practice was the recognition of people who have significantly contributed to the development of this country, whether it's in the arts, literature, and other things, but at least the country is benefiting from their contribution. And we've had that at the Sadao Dakar Jawara International Conference Center. And we advise that they should also now, not only the people who have passed away, but look at living people, individuals who are still around, who have contributed significantly to national development and have not been recognized. Nana perhaps has been a little bit, but people like Nana and others, many others, you need to really think about them and see how this innovative idea can benefit them. Of course, we agreed, I think, annually, it would be good, one or two individuals, because of the cost involved. Now, this idea of looking at commemorating national events, working with the youth, I think is also very innovative. Sharing experience of the elderly with them on occasions like this is going to really help this country. Because the youth are the future leaders, and if they are given this background information, solid, and the practical ideas they can benefit, they will, inshallah, they will apply this when they become leaders. And I think we have to thank the Nyangsane Institute for being different from what has happened in the past, taking a different path and relevant and rich development of this country. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everyone, for your wonderful contribution towards this important gathering that we have here. And many people believe that these conversations are conversations we keep having. But I also equally believe that we cannot stop having these conversations. If we want to have a progressive society, these are conversations that we should continuously keep having. So that we can also keep reminding each other about where we are, where we come from, and also what is expected of us. But when we do not gather like this, there are some of us who will even forget where we are and also stop even thinking about the things that we should be looking forward to in the future. And that is why conversations like these are very important. It is also important that we have the elderly, as Mr. Banda said, be present here, to be able to give us the historical background of things that have happened that led to independence, and also after independence, what we have experienced as a country, and also to also have the young people here to also share their thoughts with what they think of the country today, and also what is the relevance of having young people participate as far as issues of national development is concerned. We will not close here without also doing justice to allowing my boss here, Mr. Alusen, to Alusen to be able to give us a closing remark. And also after that, we want to take a group photo, and then we can take out. Now we want to allow services.
Dearest brother, or Comrade John, as the Vice President mentioned initially, especially our distinguished parents that are with us here. We are truly grateful of your presence. This is a big sacrifice because I used to emphasize this to my colleagues that it's not all that we can find in the books. Some things you have to share it from the elders. You have to sit and listen to them, share platforms with them, then you can learn something that you can never find in books. So your presence here, that is what its significance is to us. We have the opportunity to learn and know things that we cannot find in books. So we really thank you for that. So to our distinguished ladies, we are most profound by your presence because, as Uncle Sini emphasized, women have played a fundamental role in our quest for independence. So your presence here, especially very young ladies, is of significant importance. We are humbly grateful for your presence. And the gentlemen, finally, my brothers here, especially Your Excellency, Vice President, that's how I refer to them, your Honorable, and my humble brother here, and all your scholars. Your presence means a lot to us. As I always say, the number of our gathering doesn't matter much. What matters is the impact we can make. And there is the saying in the American dialect that big things have a small beginning. Every big thing has a small beginning. So we are starting here as a very medium gathering, hoping to address challenges beyond our borders. So we really thank you and appreciate your presence here. And reflecting on the independence anniversary that we are commemorating today, as we celebrate 61 years of independence, let us remember that the story of the Gambia is one of resilience, dignity, and continuity. It still continues. Research informed us that our fathers who agitated for independence were told, you cannot govern yourselves. But they insisted. And today here we are, though slowly progressing, but we are moving. I was really motivated to hear the young voices, narrating, mentioning, their determination for the future. So we are slowly but surely moving towards our progress. And from our pre-colonial civilizations to the trials of colonial rule and triumphs of 18 February 1965, Our journey reflects strength in unity and faith in progress. Today is not only a celebration of sovereignty, but a renewal commitment to justice, to good governance, to economic transformation, and to peaceful existence as a people. The responsibility of nation building rests with each generation, and especially with us. That is the young generation. If we don't show those qualities, determination, then there will still be challenges ahead. May we honor the sacrifices of those who came before us, that is our forefathers, by building a Gambia that is inclusive, prosperous, and guided by integrity. We thereby wish you all a happy independence anniversary, and we thank you all for your presence.
Keep us, great God of nations, to the Gambia ever true.